could be the greatest, you can be the best. You can be the King Kong banging on your chest.
You could beat the world, you could beat the war. You can talk to God, go banging on his door.
You can throw your hands up, you can beat the clock. You can move a mountain, you can break rocks.
You could be a master, don't wait for luck. Dedicate yourself and you go find yourself.
Standing in the Hall of Fame,
Yeah,
and the world's gonna know your name.
yeah,
'Cause you burn with the brightest flame,
yeah,
and the world's gonna know your name. And you'll be on the walls of the Hall of Fame. You can go the distance, you can run the mile. You can walk straight through hell with a smile.
you could be the hero, you get the gold. Breaking all the records he thought never could be broke.
Yeah, do it for your people, do it for your pride. Are you ever gonna know if you never even try?
Do it for your country, do it for your name. Cause there's gonna be a day when you're
Standing in the Hall of Fame, and the world's gonna know your name. 'Cause you burn with the brightest flame, and the world's gonna know your name. And you'll be on the walls of the Hall of Fame. Be a champion, be a champion, be a champion, be a champion. The walls of the Hall of Fame. Be students, be teachers, be politicians, be preachers. Yeah. Be believers, be leaders, be astronauts, be champions, be truth seekers. Be students, be teachers, be politicians, be preachers. Yeah. Be believers, be leaders, be astronauts, be champions.
Ladies and gentlemen, please make your way to your seats. Our event will begin in 5 minutes.
'Cause you burn with the brightest flame, and the world's gonna know your name. And you'll be on the walls of the Hall of Fame. You can be the greatest, you can be the best. You can be the King Kong hanging on your chest.
you could be a hero, you could beat the world. You can talk to God, go banging on his door.
You can throw your hands up, you can beat the clock. You can
feel good. I knew that I would not. So good, so good. I got you. Wow, I feel nice. A sugar and spice. I feel nice. A sugar and spice. So nice, so nice. I got you. When I hold you in my arms, I know that I can't do no wrong. And when I hold you in my arms, my love won't do you no harm. And I feel nice, that sugar and spice. I feel nice, that sugar and spice.
Listen here, buddy. I've heard about you and your kind all over town. Changing things up, making room for new development.
Oh yeah? You got a problem with that?
Abilene is the greatest city in West Texas. We can handle change. But there's been so much happening this year, you're gonna have to explain yourself.
Easy, Mayor. I totally get your point. It's true. There's a lot of orange around here, lots of construction going on. It's booming. All of my family and friends are fully employed, and people are giving us a lot of questions, comments, concerns, opinions. But you should see what us traffic cones have to go through. Some people are just downright hostile. Hey, Bernie, what's up, man? No! These stupid cones. I think we're on the same page here. Everybody wants answers, not detours.
Exactly. And as mayor of Abilene, I'm committed to that, especially as we move into this new frontier of technology. Actually, this is one of those things where AI can help us. Hey Siri, how do we talk to all of Abilene about everything happening and answer questions and concerns about what's going on? Question mark, enter, exclamation mark.
Okay, Mayor, let me help you out real quick. Okay, Siri, ChatGPT, two different things. Do you know what a prompt is?
Here we go. A great way to learn more about what's happening in Abilene in 2026, including the growth around the new data centers, Dyess Air Force Base expansion, and other major projects coming online across the city, is to attend the State of the City program at the Abilene Convention Center.
That's happening right now. We should go.
Hey, do you need a ride?
Well, I can't drive, so I mean, I kind of just appear.
Well, come on, let's go. Come with me. You know, Terry, I'd normally throw a cone in the back, but you're welcome to ride up front with me.
Shotgun! I've always wanted to say that.
Are you all in?
Define in.
out of the car. Welcome to the greatest city in West Texas. State of the City 2026 and Abilene's 145th. Joining me is our city manager, Emily Crawford. Now, Emily was here last year in a different capacity, isn't that right? So
yes, I was here kind of incognito checking out Abilene.
And almost new city manager, Emily Crawford, thank you so much for being here. This has been an amazing year in Abilene, and there's so many things that we could talk about today that we're so excited to share with you. I want to thank all of our citizens, all of our partners, all of our groups, everyone that's here that we work with to make this city better. Thank you so much for being here. But what we're going to do today is narrow it down to three distinct topics: data center construction, major development with Dyess Air Force Base and their new mission, and changes to our housing and real estate market. We want to leave here today the next frontier, especially cutting-edge technology is about to call Abilene, Texas, its home. But first, before we get there, let's hear about our future a little bit, our 145th year. And I can't think of anyone better that's going to talk about our culture and our tradition and what brought us to where we are today than our guest, Jay Moore.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Jay.
Good to see you, Jay.
Jay, thank you for being here today and taking your time to come speak with us and giving us your not only unique perspective, but wonderful perspective. No one knows Abilene better than you.
I don't know about that, but they told me to keep it short, so Wheel of Fortune comes on at 4, so
Okay.
I'm ready.
We got preloaded questions
Okay.
here, so just bear with me.
I won't even lean back.
As we look back at Abilene's 145-year history since our founding in March in 1881, there's a recurring theme of perseverance and grit that we see for so much of the West, but for Abilene, our founders had a notable, optimistic, future-driven mentality. Tell us about that and where it started.
Wow, that's a long question. Well, I have a theory, but my theory, I think, is based in fact, and that is that people that came out west after the Civil War were of a certain personality. They tended to be optimistic people. They tended to be determined people. They were people who were willing to adapt and change. But probably the most important thing, and one that we forget about, is that they were young. They were mostly young men and women who came out here in their 20s and 30s looking for a new start, looking to build a life for themselves, maybe get some land and start growing crops or whatever. But Abilene, I think, had an advantage that most other places didn't, and that is, and this is my theory, we had Buffalo Gap. People had already been coming to Buffalo Gap for 5 years before the railroad came through here. And the people that were living in Buffalo Gap were those kinds of people. And they worked together with each other. They were neighborly. They were friendly. They were helpful. They were building their own community. But they realized very quickly when the train tracks came north of Buffalo Gap that the future was up here. This is where the railroad was. This is where the telegraph was. Because in 1880, there were 1,200 people in Buffalo Gap. And today there's about 600 people in Buffalo Gap. And I think that those families that settled here early on had that kind of attitude. And being young, many of them with young kids, they wanted to build a place that was wholesome and a place where their kids could be entertained, be educated, and could just grow to love the city. And so that's the DNA that's in Abilene. That didn't happen in a lot of other railroad towns.
So as we all know, we are in a significant period of change and growth for the city of Abilene. What are some other significant growth periods for Abilene, and how were they handled that we can learn from?
Well, it seems like growth is usually determined by the United States Census, and that happens every 10 years. And that's kind of when we get the real hard, fast facts about whether or not we have grown or not. And out of our 14 and a half decades that we've been around, we've had 4 that were significant in growth. 1900 to 1910, we tripled our population. Why? I don't know. In the 1920s and the 30s, we more than doubled the population, and that's when things like McMurray came, Hendrick Hospital. We built 2 new lakes. ACU moved out to their new location. We got a zoo, a country club. All of those things were in the 1920s. Of course, the Great Depression, things slowed down. But then in the 1940s, things really picked up because, as you know, we were the home to an Army training base for a certain time, Camp Barkley. And from 1940 to 1950, our population grew by 71%. But the real growth happened in the 1950s and the 60s when Abilene's population went from 45,000 to 90,000. And in that period is when Dyess Air Force Base came, and that was a serious time of growth. Since then, we've never had anywhere close to that. 6% on average for every decade. Who's to say what this one will be, though? I don't know. Although right now, from 2020, our population was 125,000. They estimate now it's 130,000, so that's about a little less than 5%. So we're growing.
So I'm going off script here. So to say that we're experiencing unprecedented growth is probably not a factual statement.
I don't think it's factual, but I also would caution that I see a big difference between growth and activity. And I think we're having a big spurt of activity at the moment. It's yet to be seen if it's going to be growth. There was a huge spurt of activity in the 1940s with Camp Barkley. Overnight, Abilene's population, which was 23,000, overnight, 19,000 more people showed up, literally. But that wasn't sustained. That was just activity. And it changed the dynamics of Abilene for a while. And I think that's what we're experiencing right now is this period of heavy activity. It's yet to be seen if it's going to be growth. But I will say this about our civic personality. Those people who came to Camp Barkley, just like the people who are coming to build data centers here, I think they'll get caught up in who we are as people. And then they like to stick around. And that's good.
So when we talk about growth and activity, there's ripple effects that happen throughout the community, and we're certainly seeing that currently. What experiences can you hearken back to in our history that can show us how civic leaders and community members managed and handled that type of activity and growth?
Two things come to mind, and neither one of them came out of big change, or at least we didn't see it as big change at the time. Sometimes it's the subtle things that happen that lead to a bigger change down the road. In 1937, there was a movement during the middle of the Great Depression to pass a bond to put a reservoir across Elm Creek out by Fort Phantom. And that was very hotly debated. In fact, two previous mayors and the previous county judge were very, very much opposed to it. The bond to build Fort Phantom Lake passed by 150 votes. They built it in 38, it was full in 39, and in 1940, because of what Hitler was doing in Europe, it looked like we were going to go to war. And the only reason that Abilene gained an Army training base is because we had enough water because of Fort Phantom. Otherwise, they would never even looked at Abilene. Had we not had Camp Barkley, I think I could argue, but I won't take the time to do it, we wouldn't have Dyess Air Force Base, which, 5,000 employees, $500 million in payroll. Nobody knew that when they were voting for or against that reservoir, what that could lead to. Another example would be in the 1980s and 1990s, when a local foundation decided to rehab some downtown buildings. I don't think their plan was to revitalize all of downtown. But because they put the depot back together, they put the Paramount back together, they helped work on the Wooten Hotel and the Grace Museum, it has led to Tuesday nights in Abilene of downtown being packed with people. I don't think they foresaw that coming. So sometimes it's just those little subtle things. And I don't know what the subtle things there are that are happening now, but it's exciting to find out.
Well, Jay, water is king.
It is king.
So before you leave us today, can you remind everyone where they can find your work and also about your Stone Owl Institute that will be making its home into the Abilene Heritage Square?
Well, I don't like to self-promote. You can get my books at the public library. They're free. You can just check them out right there.
They're good.
Abilene Stone Owl Institute, real quick, is a three-part thing. One part is I teach high school students about the Constitution and the founding of this country. They get a $3,000 scholarship from a local foundation. It's a fantastic program, not because I teach it, but because of what the kids get out of that. The second part is called Stone Owl Parliament. It's adult classes. You'll hear more about that coming up. But the third part is this type of stuff, where I talk about Abilene, write books, and make presentations. Right now, most of my classes are happening at the Community Foundation's classroom, but soon it will be at the Abilene Heritage Center, or Abilene Heritage Square. So thanks for asking about that.
You're welcome. Excited about that.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank y'all.
old Abilene High, designed by architect David S. Castle, is a late Gothic revival-style building that opened to students in 1924 after a building located at South First and Peach and even a warehouse at City Hall housed classes for Abilene's high schoolers since the 1880s. Post-World War II population growth brought the need for a larger school, and the current Abilene High was built at North 6th and Mockingbird in the mid-1950s. The old Abilene High then became Lincoln Junior High and eventually Lincoln Middle School until enrollment decline forced its closure in 2007. Now, after almost 20 years of vacancy, the old Abilene High will reopen as Abilene Heritage Square on May 18, 2026. Thanks to a private volunteer fundraising effort by the Abilene Heritage Square nonprofit organization and more than 550 donors, the new AHS will house the city's main library, the Grace Museum's Spark Science Center, Stone Owl Institute, and several community venue spaces, including the beautifully restored Abilene High Auditorium. Also opening late April, the City of Abilene's two new recreation centers. The Cesar Chavez and G.V. Daniels Recreation Centers will be home to a new slate of activities, sports, fitness, gaming, public spaces, and even branch libraries. Their completion will mark the culmination of a $28 million effort funded by bonds approved in a 2023 city election. Spring 2026 will also bring the completion of one more historic revitalization effort, the Cypress Street Improvement Project. Launched in 2024 with tax increment reinvestment zone funds totaling $8 million, the project has widened sidewalks, improved lighting, and added amenities that create a pedestrian-friendly corridor where everyone is encouraged to stay and enjoy downtown. Capping off Cypress is the transformation of the former site of the Abilene Reporter-News. The privately funded open lawn split with a walkable pond and twin pavilions is designed to host community events, markets, and celebrations, or simply serve as the perfect place for an impromptu play date between friends.
Well, we're here to talk a little bit about a little data center that we've got going up on the north part of town, and this is the largest single investment since Dyess Air Force Base. It hasn't been that long ago when Michael and I were riding around in an ATV down some dirt pastures with Misty and telling me all these things that were going to happen out there. I never could have fathomed that. But with us to talk about this today, we have Michael McNamara, CEO and co-founder of Lancium, Jamie McGrath, Senior Vice President of Data Center Operations of Crusoe, and our own Misty Mayo, CEO of the Development Corporation. Thank all of y'all for being here today. I know this is some really good information that y'all are going to share with us.
So, Michael, let's start at the beginning. Maybe not. We don't have that much time. Let's start with the idea that when I came to Abilene 8 months ago, Lancium was all I knew your project by. And I know that commonly in Abilene, people call it the Lancium project. However, now we know there's so many other partners involved. So can you explain to us who all is part of Stargate One and what those relationships are?
Yeah, great. Thanks for calling it the Lancium project. We own the land and the electrical infrastructure, and we've been here since 2020 is when I first saw you, Misty. And so we've done all the development to prepare the project responsibly, reliably with the Utility Commission and the grid operator and AEP, the transmission provider, to make sure that this is the ideal spot for what will be the world's largest data center. So the electrical infrastructure is ours, the land is ours, and Jamie's company has built the data center. And Jamie's customer is Oracle, and Oracle's customer is OpenAI.
Since we're there, can you give us an update on construction? How much longer are we in the building phase, and what will this final campus look like?
Sure, I can take that. So the construction will last till the first quarter of 2027 with the existing 8 buildings that are under construction right now. Obviously, we're excited to potentially expand the project, based on the need and wants of our existing client. We're covering about 9,000 craft workers that are on site every day. So it's a very large project. and it's about 4 million square feet, and it's using all of the power that's provided through Lancium's land development. But it is a scaled project. I've been in the data center business for 26 years. I was around during the first dot-com era in 99, 2000, and saw that kind of commercial growth of data centers into opening up to the public for the internet. And really what's unique about this experience for me is that I see similarities to that, but really the scale, we're smarter, we understand the business, we understand our customers, we're making sure that the financially viable project before we start. So it's a big project, but the life of this building 1 through 8 will be roughly through Q1 2027.
So can you talk to us, Jamie, a little bit about what is happening inside those buildings? I know there's security things that we can't talk about, but I mean, we all are familiar with ChatGPT. In fact, Terry just taught the mayor how to use it recently.
Kinda.
So outside of chat, talk to us if you can. What types of compute is happening inside these buildings? We'd really love to know what is being produced here in our backyard.
Sure. So inside these new AI data centers are these graphic processing units, right? And they really have the ability to enhance the compute power and the timeline to actually learn, do the machine learning. So inside of this facility, and I don't know for sure just because Crusoe, we're the owner and the operator, but we don't operate the systems inside. But there's these GPUs that are run in clusters, we call them, and they're really learning how, they're model learning, they're machine learning. And once they're done learning what it is that they're set out, the project, then they can turn it into an inference, which is what we can use. As in the video, you were using the ChatGPT. You can ask it a question, and based on all the model learning, it becomes an inference that you can use to, find answers to things quickly. But inside the data center and one thing I'll say is that the data centers have become more, the compute power and by way of the networking, the densities have become much, much, greater in order to kind of process these big models. So I would say really it's just machine learning. I don't know what they're, if it's ChatGPT, I suspect it's probably something like that, but I think there's other applications that they're using inside the buildings also.
Well, Jamie, is it fair to say even the dancing cat that people want to
Yes.
text each other, right down to your little emojis and things like that? All of the dancing cats, all of the dancing folks on your team, all of that is funneling through the data center.
Yes.
The fun things we like to do online as well.
And I usually read stories to Lucy. She's 8, but now we go into GPT Codex, which is coding.
Yep.
She loves unicorns, and her and I make video games where she goes and plays with the unicorns that Codex does for 10 minutes before bed. And I highly recommend you guys try this. And she just says,
cats, unicorns, whatever.
She just says, I want to have a game where I see a unicorn in the forest.
Yep.
And it thinks for 5 minutes, probably right out there, and 5 minutes is the video game she's playing.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible. I still don't understand it, but John. Power and water use are big questions of data centers right now, and I think that we've done a very good job, really, of talking about water and really the conservative use of water that especially this new data center here uses. But tell us why AI requires so much power and water.
So I think I mentioned that just before that the densities of these, the compute and the power that you need to generate these models now and it's about time to market. So it's really about the speed to which you can, generate a model for the public use. So, to that end, you need a lot of power, right? In a small, I mentioned that the building's 4 million, the total of 8 buildings is 4 million square feet. If you were to develop that 25 years ago, it would be, exponentially more. And then the water, because the compute is so dense, the chips are so close together, the air-cooled technology is outdated, right? You can't put enough air across a chip to keep it cool. So you have to actually bring water to the data rooms inside the cabinet. So that's why these facilities need the liquid cooling that you hear in the market. So, but what we've done in our design is we've done a closed loop system. So you fill it once, and you use the air across the chillers to, to heat exchange the water and cool it down to bring it back into the data center. So really, it's just a one-time use of water that'll last the life of the project.
And relatively no loss of water.
That's right, yes.
And I looked this morning, the data center is a 500-gallon per minute allocation, all sustainably that we've all talked about. The city of Abilene uses 16,000 gallons per minute, I think. And I looked for last month, and it was the whole data center, 8,000 people, was 10 gallons a minute. And I spilled guacamole on my shirt at El Phoenix at lunch, and I used more water on my shirt getting the stain out than the data center did. And then on power, I think this is, we take this very seriously. It's part of our focus. The reason we came here was West Texas is just blessed with the most abundant, low-cost power in the world. And if America's going to win the AI race, it's going to win it in Texas. And when we came here, it was because there'd be negative price power. And you can go on your phones right now, don't have to ask AI, you can go to ERCOT.com, and with the data centers running full out, the power price right now is negative. They will pay you to take the power because there's so much.
And one thing I would add is that I think, you mentioned earlier about the relationship with Crusoe and Lancium. Crusoe was out there trying to find stranded energy to use for the compute, right? The energy that wasn't being used, how can we kind of make it useful? And that's how we met Lancium, for that own reason. So when we had this opportunity, we reached out to Michael because he knew that he had this, development project on the table.
Michael, can I follow up on one thing? You talked about the race. So what does that mean? What does it mean for Abilene and this Stargate campus in this global race for AI output?
I was at the White House before Christmas. I think it's the view of the White House, and the Utility Commission Chairman Gleason, said it, recently open meeting, it is of critical importance we win the AI race, economically, national security, many reasons. And the White House has said, if we're going to win the race, we're going to depend on Texas to do it. Because of the ability to do business, the can-do spirit, the speed at which you can build projects, and the energy abundance, natural gas, wind, solar, and everything. And I know one of the major semiconductor company believes that half of their chips will go to Texas in the world.
Well, Misty, we know you're always looking for opportunities. And so let us know, what opportunities are there for Abilene with this Stargate in our community, and how can we capitalize on those opportunities?
Well, I appreciate that, Mayor. It's truly been 5 years of a marathon. I joked last year about how it was literally, perceived by the public that it was an overnight success for the city of Abilene, when in fact it was years of diligence. And we continue at the Development Corporation, the DCOA team continues to work every day in identifying opportunities to help grow new industry, help grow existing companies. We consider Lancium and Crusoe, as well as OpenAI and Oracle, as existing companies. They've been in our community now for several years, and we continue to walk alongside with them. We're working with the ability to attract vendors and some of the suppliers that they work with. In fact, we just announced a Fortune company named Wesco, and they are now operating in a Development Corporation-owned facility out in Five Points Business Park. There are boundless opportunities, and we continue to capture those and continue to execute on those.
Well, you have already answered my next question.
Well,
so with that, what else would you like for the community to know, the greater Abilene area, about the DCOA, the work that your team is doing, again, to take this incredible opportunity and convert that into jobs and opportunities for Abilenians?
Well, you've just hit it, Emily. It's ultimately, as we expand the tax base, we expand that commercial tax base, we are proving prosperity. We're improving prosperity. We're improving the lives, the livelihood of our citizens. When a man and woman can have an opportunity for a job, that makes a future for our families, a future for my children, for your grandchildren. So the Development Corporation is committed that we are every day working to attract that commercial base, diversify it, and continue to increase it so that ultimately we're helping to grow a future for Abilene.
Well, Misty, thank you and your team. Y'all do a phenomenal job. And Michael and Jamie, we appreciate you being here, but more than that, we appreciate your commitment and your investment in our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Dirt is moving across Abilene in 2026 with construction set to get underway at several locations. First, Rainy Creek, the product of a partnership between the city, county, and Development Corporation of Abilene, was announced in early December 2025. Completion is expected in early 2027 for the 35-acre development built by Wallace Ventures headquartered in Dallas. It's set to include 7 major retail spaces, 5 restaurants, a fitness component, and more entertainment offerings. Rainy Creek's anchor retail space, occupied by Bass Pro Shops, will be a 70,000 square foot store, including Bass Pro's signature shopping experience that combines retail with family-friendly entertainment, outdoor education, and conservation. A quick drive down Loop 322 brings us to the next big dig for Abilene in 2026. A new airport access road will break ground this spring, opening the property to future commercial aerospace development. And the completion of the air tanker ramp will expand ABI's strategic role in wildfire defense across the region. In early summer, a major renovation and expansion of Abilene Regional Airport Terminal gets underway. Phase 1 begins thanks to voters approving $20 million in bond funding. It will combine with up to $50 million in federal grants for an anticipated $70 million total investment to transform ABI. Removing escalators for elevators, expanding security in gate areas, replacing baggage claim, upgrading HVAC, and much more. Add to all of that new direct flights to Denver, Houston, and Phoenix. EBI's new terminal will help Abilene and the Big Country really take off into the next frontier.
Well, we're going to keep our eyes to the sky because the data center is big, but it is not the only major project happening in Abilene. And, we've got some folks that are our neighbors, that we appreciate, our extended family out at Dyess. And we want to talk about, what's beginning this historic transformation and what's going on at Dyess Air Force Base. So please help me welcome Major General John Nichols, Vice President of the Military Affairs Committee. A lot of people in our community don't have a military background or really understand, what Dyess is, what it does. So kind of tell us what's going on with our neighbors over there in our backyard.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and Emily, thanks for the opportunity to be here. I noticed in the previous panel that it was 2 versus 3, and now it's 2 versus 1. So go easy on me here. No, it's really great to be here and share some perspective. First off, happy 145th birthday to Abilene. What a wonderful city. And, for a long period, since 1942, Jay kind of hit on some of the stuff with Camp Barkley, but since 1942, there's been a presence, Thai Army Airfield, and then eventually Dyess Air Force Base. So an important and critical part of this community. And I think it goes both ways. Dyess is very lucky to have Abilene, and Abilene is very lucky to have Dyess. When I talk to people, I talk about Dyess Air Force Base as a national treasure. And I think that's really the best way to capture it. And so what does a national treasure mean? And I think this is an important part that if we can, kind of articulate and talk about it, because it's something we can brag about with Dyess. It is the only military installation in America that has both a global strike mission, so think B-1 bombers dropping bombs on targets all over the world, and simultaneously an airlift mission with the C-130Js, airlift, moving people and equipment and supplies all around the world. It is it. It is the only military installation that has both a global strike and an airlift mission under one umbrella at one time and doing those missions concurrently. So we have a lot to be thankful for. If you could just give me just a quick story, and I promise this will be quick. I was asked by one of the major banks in town to do a Veterans Day thing for their veteran employees. And I'm up there bragging on Abilene, and I said, what you don't enjoy in some cities across America is when they hear the jet noise, they don't view that as the sound of freedom. They view that as a nuisance, too loud, whatever, disruptive. But in Abilene, it is the sound of freedom. Well, the president and CEO and bank boss man that was in the room said, hey, John, that is also the sound of money. And I think he's exactly correct that it's the sound of freedom and it's also the sound of money. And I think if you look at it in that way, it's pretty cool because there's a patriotic piece of this and then there's a money piece of this. And Mayor, to your question, there are B-1 bombers. Just specifically, we have 23 B-1 bombers assigned to Dyess. That's a good number, and their job in the world is to strike targets when directed by the President of the United States. We can kind of get into how some of that's been going, how it's happened in the past, and where it's going to go, in the future. There's 28 C-130J airlift aircraft out at Dyess today. They move stuff all around the world. A little known fact about the C-130s is that strike that happened, Midnight Hammer, with the B-2s, hitting the critical nuclear infrastructure in Iran. The C-130s were in the Middle East moving stuff and supplies, setting the theater so that operation could happen. Unbelievable work by the C-130s. And then you just fast forward just a little bit to the Venezuela operation. I'm telling you, a lot had to come together for that Venezuela operation. All the intel had to be good. The weather had to be good. The ships, the submarines, the drones, the fighters, all the aircraft had to be in position, ready to go. The special operators had to be ready to go. But in my humble opinion, the B-1s out of Dyess, out of Abilene, Texas, are the ones that kicked the door down and allowed for Delta Force to get in there and grab Maduro and his lovely bride. It was, no kidding, the B-1s from Abilene, Texas that made that happen. So, very proud of that. If I could also, I'd probably be remiss if I didn't talk about what's going on right now. Everyone's tracking the news. This Operation Epic Fury. In my opinion, this is the biggest geostrategic game changer in our lifetimes. Some will argue, and you could probably, we could talk to Jay Moore and, probably get the official historical answer on this. But some would argue that the fall of the Berlin Wall, when, the Soviet Union collapsed, was a big one. It was. But I think when you play fast forward to what's happening now in the Middle East, when you look at the squeeze that's being put on our strategic adversary in China, I think this is a really, really big thing. I promise you that the bombers are involved. The other night when the B-2s launched from Whiteman, Missouri, they recovered here because they had icing in Missouri. So you had B-2s landing here at Dyess. It's nice to have a large piece of concrete after a 37-hour mission to land on. I had the privilege of meeting my old executive officer from Whiteman who was on that mission, and I took him to breakfast the next morning. What a mission. All of the bombers are involved. You heard about the B-1s out of Ellsworth striking targets in this current operation. And I promise you, they're all involved. And bombers are awesome because they can range, they can fly a long time, they can carry a bunch of stuff, and they can destroy a bunch of targets. So, bottom line, national treasure here, Sound of Freedom, largest employer in Abilene, $600 million annual economic impact in Abilene, $3.6 billion economic impact across the state of Texas. That's also the sound of money. So we're really lucky in that respect.
Thank you, John.
That's incredible, John. It's exciting to hear the way that Abilene is getting to play on that global stage and protecting the United States. That's really impressive. Can you talk to us now about the B-21 Raider coming to Dyess, what that means for Dyess, what that means for Abilene, and how we can help be prepared?
Yes, so the way I would describe B-21 is it's the next generation stealth bomber. So you see the B-2, you see what it looks like. It's that dark gray triangle, beautiful triangle that flies in the sky. That's coming to Abilene. When we see the B-21 circling these skies, I'm telling you there's going to be car accidents because you'll be driving along and you're going to hit the person that stopped in front of you if you don't stop your car. It's that kind of a deal. It's still that way with the B-2 and Whiteman. It's going to be that way. When we say sixth generation stealth, what does that mean? Translated, it just means it's the best version of stealth aircraft that are available in America. And they're going to come here in numbers. They're going to come here in a timing and tempo that's going to allow America to do what America needs to do. With that, there's about $1.6 billion in capital expenditures, $1.6 billion of capital expenditures that are going to happen at Dyess in the next 10 to 15 years. That is an incredible amount of infrastructure development. We estimate about 5,600 airmen and families will join us here in Abilene. That's a net increase. I am 100% confident that that number is not 100% right, okay? It's close enough to give you a sense that there's going to be some net growth here in Abilene. And we can talk about housing. I'm super excited to hear the next panel discussion about housing because that's going to be an important part of that. There was a recent announcement between the Air Force and Northrop Grumman that they sank about, I think the number was upwards of $5 billion into B-21 production. So that's happening in Palmdale, California. It's an impressive plant. That's where they're building all the B-21. $5 billion to get the pipeline and get the factory going a little bit quicker. And they just announced that the first B-21 aircraft will arrive at Ellsworth Air Force Base, our sister B-1 base currently in South Dakota. That'll happen in 2027. So good news on the B-21 front. Lots of military construction. Unbelievably capable aircraft coming here to an air base near you.
Well, we always want to ask as the community, what can we do? But you know what? What we as a community is what I love about Abilene is we know that there's a mission out there. There's a mission for freedom out there. And, we just always want to embrace that. But just real quick, what do you need from the community outreach on this expansion?
So I think as I look at this challenge, I really do think for West Texas it comes down to three things, and this is John Nichols' opinion. It's housing. I think we're going to talk about it. It's energy, and it's water. Two of those are way outside my lane, and the first one is probably a little bit outside my lane too. But let me talk to it in the context of airmen and how this is going to go with the population piece. I see what's happening here as an absolute super red hot seller's market. You've got extremely low inventory that's moving incredibly fast. The demand is up there and it's going at higher prices, both for homes and for rentals. I think that I'd be very interested in what the housing panel is going to say. With that, I don't think that there's going to be any change in the demand side of the equation. I think AI growth is going to continue. Maybe I'm reading the tea leaves incorrectly, but I think AI growth in West Texas will continue at a rapid pace. And you're going to have a couple other bubbles laid on top of that. Number one, all of the B1s in the world, we got 23 of them. The other 21 up in South Dakota are all going to come to Texas. They're going to come to Dyess. That's going to be a housing bubble of about 3,000 airmen and families overlaid at about a 3-year period. That is going to be a bell curve. It'll go up, it'll peak, and then it'll go down as we get rid of B1. But what you'll also see is that B21 curve of airmen, families, contractors, as civilians, and again, right around 5,500. That's another. So you have bubble on top of bubble on top of bubble, and we now have a housing situation. Airmen are a slice of society, but those airmen are the ones that said, raise the right hand and I'm going to support and defend the Constitution, and if asked, I'm going to put my life on the line. It would be a good outcome where everyone in Abilene and the surrounding communities doesn't have a housing issue, but let me talk about the airmen, the ones that rose their, put their hand up. They ought not to be in search of a house, a roof, or a bed. In my opinion, we owe them the ability to get an affordable house in this town. With every challenge, there's opportunity. We are looking at a lot of good housing discussions that are going on. Emily, I know you've been part of that. DCOA's involved, the mayor's involved, city council. We are moving at a good rate to define the problem, put our hands around it, and come forward with solutions. One of the solutions that I think needs to be part of this is a dedicated off-base military housing development, a large number, 800 to 1,000 homes of various sizes, degrees, shapes, where they can use the basic allowance of housing, the housing stipend that our airmen get, and put it right here near to the base and help the Air Force take care of some of the issues so that they're not going out and getting other housing that's going to be made available to the community. So long answer to a short question, but I think housing is the number one thing as I see it from a Military Affairs Council perspective.
We appreciate that. And General Nichols, we are blessed and honored to have you in Abilene, Texas. We're glad that you came back to join us in everything you do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you.
I'm losing.
Public safety has been a priority for Abilene since its founding in 1881. It was that year the first firefighting bucket brigade was formed following a fire that destroyed part of the city's business district. Equipment and services were added year by year, and by 1922, the city of Abilene took over the volunteer operation, establishing a full-time paid crew as part of municipal services. Now, fast forward to 2026, and the Abilene Fire Department is celebrating the opening of its 9th fire station. At a cost of $8 million, voter-approved bond funds were used to construct the 14,000 square foot facility that houses 8 fire personnel. The station is located at 1102 Beltway South and was built to answer the growing needs of far South Abilene while helping reduce overall call response times for the entire department. AFD Station 9 features 4 double-sized apparatus bays, offices, training space, and an elevated patio that gives crews line of sight across the city. A big change is on the horizon for the Abilene Zoo. Work has begun on Master Plan Phase 1 known as Wild Encounters and Ferocious Eats. The $23 million initiative that includes $15 million in bond funding will bring an expansion of the current rhino exhibit, new amphitheater and event lawn, a new multi-species habitat that makes room for a larger giraffe herd, and new African hoof stock species. Also on the way, the addition of a 2-story cafe, new lion and cheetah habitats, and the installation of a fully accessible C-130, giving visitors a cockpit view of the zoo's incredible new animals and attractions. We travel to South Central Abilene to see another lifestyle amenity upgrade in 2026 and a new chapter in the life of Maxwell Golf Course. Earlier this year, Lone Star Golf Course Management was selected to manage Maxwell after a request for proposals was issued by the city. Lone Star and the City of Abilene are now in a 10-year management agreement that includes $300,000 in improvements to the course in 2026. Maxwell reopens mid-March for play, with a bright future certainly in full swing for the city's historic public golf course.
Well, there's no hiding that we have a critical housing shortage in Abilene, especially when it comes to rental in a rental market, and we have a housing shortage. Rates have increased due to demand, and we know that. That's why you professionals are here to help us out on that. But this is a lot more just to do with just population and growth. There's a lot of factors that come into this. So today I'd like to introduce Mike Powell with Girard Real Estate and Ken Hogan, the Executive Director of Abilene Association of Realtors.
Welcome. So, Mike, you specialize in managing rental properties, and Ken, you are expert in all things Abilene real estate. So, as the mayor has said, we continue to hear about the cost of rental housing escalating 30, 40, 50%. Tell us what you're seeing. Help us understand from your perspective what's really going on.
We are seeing those increases right now. And, you know, we've seen those increases, though, not just recently. They've been increasing over the last 18 to 24 months. There's been some recent spikes where, you know, it has gone up significantly in the last few months. It boils down to a supply and demand issue. We just really don't have enough housing on market right now. Now we're in a corrective pattern for that. I can attribute that to, you know, we came out of COVID, and you know, when we came out of COVID in 21, the housing market just took off. You're talking multiple offers, you're talking above asking price. The inventory of rentals coming into the market slowed down because folks didn't have to make it a rental when they moved. They were able to sell their house if that's what they wanted to do. And so we've seen this boom and this shortage before, and we were in this in 21, 22. Well, then, you know, you turn around and we had a rate increase for what, you know, it takes to buy a house. So then you see kind of a cooling off period with the sales market. And what happens then is we have an influx of rentals that come in, and we have had that market kind of change in the last little bit. We're back in a hot market again, as John said. It's a seller's market. We have folks that are not converting over to rentals like they used to. And so right now we're back in the building phase, but I can tell you when the market slowed down in 22, 23, later into 24, building slowed down. So we're behind the curve a little bit. You're seeing a lot of building going on right now. Drive up and down Maple Street. I mean, whether you go from East South 11th all the way to FM 707, there is developments literally everywhere. And it's not just there. So I think we've got an active plan to develop some additional housing for these folks. And we've always taken care of our military. This hasn't been a problem in the past. And so I'm hoping by the time that this comes into play in the next, 5 to 6 years, that we'll be beyond this point, because there are things in play to correct some of the deficits in housing that we're seeing now.
Well, it's kind of a strange dynamic too, like Mike said, in 2022, interest rates increased. The Federal Reserve got pretty aggressive raising interest rates, which in turn, raises mortgage rates. So that did kind of slow our market down. So we were, rocking along about a 3.8 month of inventory. That's how we gauge sales activity, is the inventory that we have in the county. So, and then in the end of 2025, when I pull the stats, we had about a 1.4 month of inventory. So it was like, goodness, maybe the rates have settled back down in the fives and six, high fives, six. So that has caused a spur in the purchase end of it. And additionally, even though interest rates are, better than they were, there's still some people out there that have 3% interest rates that are not moving. That they don't want to move. They'll leave that rate. So, that exacerbates the inventory problem, the inventory issue, which is not a bad thing. I mean, for those of us that have been around here for a while, we've seen it on the other end of that spectrum. So, anyway, to kind of give another spin on that.
So I think it's an assumption that we're seeing this squeeze on our rental market specifically because of temporary workers and related to the data center. Is that what you're seeing, or are you seeing other factors that are creating this dynamic?
Well, I mean, right now, and pulled numbers before I left, we've got under 100 rental properties in the Abilene MLS available right now. And as one of the larger firms here in Abilene, we have roughly 35% of the market share of residential rentals. We're sitting at 25 this morning available. We're taking in 200 plus applications a month to lease properties. You can quickly do the math that those don't work. So we are seeing that, and that's why prices are going up. The demand is just extremely high. There's some other factors that explain why prices have raised too, and touch on that a little bit. But all the things that happened in 21, as many of you know or invested in Abilene, you would understand that the valuations on properties went up drastically because home sales went up. You saw a large jump in what a house was worth between 2019 and 2021-22. I mean, the housing prices really had what I call a market correction. And with that comes all those set costs that the investors have to incur. Those are going to be taxes. Those are going to be insurance, because your insurance goes up on your value of your property that you're insuring. Not only that, now what it takes to build a property is not what it was 3 or 4 years ago. The cost of goods sold has gone up across the board. So now you're looking at a higher investment on your actual home itself. And so you've got to adjust those costs. And of course, the end consumer is our resident, our tenant, and they're the ones that are bearing the cost of those. I mean, it's having to be passed along. Not to mention insurance. We've had a big change in the way insurance and rental properties are insured. I mean, and I'll give you just a quick example. A small 3-bedroom, 1-bath house, let's say 1,000 square feet, used to insure that for $900 to $1,000 annually. Now that same house, no change, maybe new roof, maybe some new windows, doesn't matter, $2,500 annually. It has to come from somewhere, and so those residents are feeling that impact of our cost of goods that it's taking to do business as an investor.
And it's like Mike said, it's not only the cost of insurance, which is really skyrocketed, but it's all the things that are connected to that labor, to get these properties worked on, dishwashers, disposals, just the basic things that that are required, so we're not making excuses, but we're trying to give some better idea that it's, there's other factors that are involved, other than the data center, which we're thankful for. Like Mike said too, it's just a supply and demand issue right now.
So, in your opinions, what are some of the good strategies that our community do to address the housing shortage and probably some of these other factors that are happening, us as a community?
We've been waiting all day for this, Ken.
Well, yeah, thank you. But I think, the permitting processes, the development practices that are put into place by the city and even by the county, as these subdivisions, expand outside the city limits, the ease of those being platted, what kind of, rules and regulations are the builders and developers having to accommodate for these municipalities. I think that has a lot to do with it, just the ease of that. I don't know that anybody has the magic bullet for, to just got to build more houses. And I think that the financial institutions have to have a good feeling that this growth is sustainable, because these houses, like Mike said, they cost more, significantly more, as a lot of times as a result of COVID. I think we're still feeling some supply chain issues on materials and things like that, and price increases and so on and so forth. So it takes more money, and I think the banks have to be, have to feel good about the future. So
it just takes money.
That's right.
Well, and to spin off on that a little bit, the DCOA has done a great job with bringing additional businesses here. It's not just AI that's coming here right now. I mean, you look at, you've got Freddy's, you've got Jersey Mike's, you've got Five Guys, you've got the Chewies, you've got, I must be hungry, but I'm naming off some of those. But just off the top of my head, I'm thinking sandwiches here. But in a previous business model that I used to have back in a healthcare staffing day, one of the things that we focused on was legs under a table. And think of your community, think of Abilene as your kitchen table. If it only has 3 or 4 legs underneath it and you lose a leg, how stable is that table? How does it look to other folks that are coming here? Is this a sustainable economy? The more businesses that we draw here, and I can assure you, they do not come here on a 2 to 3 year whim that because the data center's here and they have employees. They're doing a long haul analysis on our town. And with those new businesses coming here brings economic stability, and with it you'll see the housing come behind it because lenders and banks are more open to invest, that they know that this isn't going to be cyclical like what we're seeing in the past few years. You'll have a sustainable economy with additional businesses coming in. So I think that the economic growth that we're seeing now, while we have a little bit of a shorting on housing, it'll correct itself in a short period of time.
Emily, us and me and council, myself and council, and you, our number one discussion recently has been housing. And even in our retreat, that's really become our priority of discussion. What's the city able to do to address the housing situation and help the private sector filling the housing gap?
Well, as you know, we don't have a house building division in the city of Abilene. So like Ken just said, one of the greatest things we can do is expedite that process. We have to have the city of Abilene in our planning and development department. And we are committed to expediting those plan reviews, the permitting, the inspections, because the sooner that these new units can get up and operational, the sooner we have more space for our people. So that is a number one priority for us at the city, is to make sure we're being business friendly. The second is that we're actually currently working on identifying properties within the city of Abilene that we are calling developer ready. Those that are not in the floodplain, already zoned properly, have utility access that would be easy. Looking for those locations in Abilene where we can have a map and say, hey, this is going to take less time and ideally less investment because it's already ready for this residential structure. And so just to remind you too that the council has approved 2 tax credit property applications. One is currently under renovation now at 301 Cypress. That's a mixed use, mixed income property. And then the council did approve a senior living facility that's still has to go through a process, but again, that's a role that the council is taking to approve those different types of housing opportunities for our community. And I want to just plug here, we had invited Doug Peters with the Chamber. He was unable to be here, but really want to emphasize the work the Chamber is doing. They have commissioned a housing study, and it is almost finished. And that's going to give us the data, like what you're saying, Mike. We need that data to be able to provide our investors, our builders, our developers to say, hey, we're not just in a 2 or 3 year window here. John Nichols referenced the bubble on top of the bubble. Well, we've got about 4 bubbles, and when you timeline those out, that could be 10, 15, 20 years. So this is no longer just a temporary need. This could be a long-term investment, and that's what we feel like will be helpful for getting our investors and our builders to get the inventory we need. So we'll be able to get that housing study out, hopefully within a very short period of time, working with our partners at the Chamber and the DCOA.
Right, and you know, Abilene, we want to always be known to be business friendly. We want to take care of our citizens. We want to be cautious about that. But expediting this process, like you've talked about, be business friendly and kind of get out of the way. And just while we're on this topic of short-term housing, short-term relief, let's talk about this RV park at Elmdale and I-20.
Well, I realize there's probably mixed feelings about this large RV park inside the city limits. It's 1,000 tiny home subdivision, basically. But the reason that that's important for Abilene right now is two things. It's fast and it's temporary. So what this will provide is within a few months, we'll have 1,000 units for people who are working in our area data centers to get out of the hotels, to get out of apartments, to get out of the rent houses, freeing up more capacity for our own Abilene people who are looking for places to live, our students, our healthcare. And so the reason why it's temporary is because the permit that the council approved was temporary. It was a maximum of 10 years. And at that point in time, all of those units have to be removed. So this will not turn into some sort of a blight or an unpleasant development for the future. The council has been very, very critical about looking at how to address short-term housing needs with a long-term perspective, and this was one of those solutions.
Thank you, Emily. And Mike and Ken, we appreciate you being here today. We know that this is kind of the hot topic of Abilene, and y'all being here today means a lot. I can't forget my AISD students for all the work that they do getting this together. That they do a tremendous job, and they're always excited to do this. So as we finish up today, let's take a look at how the big country is getting ready for its next frontier with a new program at Texas State Technical College.
Take this hose out right here. Make sure you wash yourself. All right. So we need to slow it down to make sure it's safe. So we run it with back pressure on our flow control.
Walk into any learning space at Texas State Technical College, and what you'll find is a lot of students on their feet and on their way to some of the most in-demand jobs.
And what we do here is we teach basic electrical and mechanical theory, and application is a big part of it.
Larry Brickner is an industrial systems technology instructor at TSTC's Abilene campus. He helped craft TSTC's new Data Center Pathway program.
We took the basic program, which ours is a year and some change, and we had to cut it down to 15 weeks so that we can do a bootstrap program where they're like, hey, get in, get out, and get working, right? We want to upskill our Abilene residents so that they can fill those roles out there so outside personnel don't have to come in and backfill.
With Texas growing as the largest data center state, we've got to be responsive and on top of what's coming down the pipeline.
Cindy Evans is Director of Accelerated Training for TSTC West Texas. She and her colleagues have been working over a year to develop the data center training program and place local residents in local data center jobs as soon as possible.
Everything we do here at TSTC is driven by industry ask. If it's from an HVAC, if it's from an advanced manufacturing, we're listening to our partners, and that's the industry, because our model is place Texas in great paying jobs. And by doing that, we've got to listen to our industry, whether it's healthcare, advanced manufacturing, or the data center.
The best part about my job is I get to see the light bulb click in here, but it's even more rewarding when we get the text message or we get the phone call. Hey, I just got hired on over here. I had this problem last weekend, and I did exactly what you said and found it real quick, and everybody was excited. So they get their mini wins. But the best part is putting them with an employer that they are enjoying what they do every day, right?
Spots are filling fast for TSTC's new program, with students already attending a registration night for the first cohort, February 26th. Classes start March 9th, but TSTC is already planning for its next sessions and the new students ready for their next frontier.
20 years ago, I was an attendance clerk with the school district. So who would have thought that here I am, 25 years now in education, that I'm in top of the talks of data center operator. talking about nuclear, talking about solar, talking about, like, I never would thought this would be what I'd be doing today. So 20 years ago, those people probably did not think of Abilene. Look how much Abilene has grown. From the zoo to downtown, I mean, it is thriving. And it's exciting to be part of this future. It's exciting to be part of the new growth of Abilene. And so I'm excited to be part of that lane. And I'm excited that TSTC entrusts me to be part, how to lead a team into this new technology.
Thank you to TSTC for their work to train our workforce of tomorrow. This is an exciting time in Abilene's history, and our people are doing a great job rising to the occasion. Council and I are committed to creating the best Abilene for present and future generations. Infrastructure, public safety, and quality of life are top priorities as we move forward. Don't forget, yourabileneinvestment.com is a great place to engage with the city. In fact, our team is coming around now with a special pin. With one tap to your phone, it will take you right to that website. Thank you for being with us today, and thanks to the students from AISD Lift for streaming our program. Now, it's time to really get this birthday party going. Let's see if I can use AI to kick it off. Create a 145th birthday celebration for an amazing year for the best city in West Texas. Give it some balloons, confetti, and cake while you're at it. Enter